Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm with eLearning Brothers. Today our session is going to be about how to rock your HR program in 2020. Here we are at the beginning of a new year, and we are going to be giving you some tips and tricks on how to make sure your HR program is right up to snuff for the new year. This session will be recorded, and we'll send a copy of that recording out to everybody who has registered, so you can be looking for that in your email later in the day. If you have questions during the webinar, we'll be ready to answer questions. You can use the questions panel that's part of your GoToWebinar control panel there on the right side. We'll get to as many of your questions as we can, and if there's some questions that we're not able to answer live, we'll try to get those answered offline. Also, we're going to be giving away a free ebook today to everybody who has registered, so we'll include that in the follow-up email as well, and our presenter is going to reference that throughout the session. You'll be able to get your own copy shortly after the session. So speaking of our presenter, we've got Rich Vass, Richard Vass, the Director of Customer Experience here at eLearning Brothers. And we're excited to hear what you have to share. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrew. And hello, everybody, and welcome. It's my first webinar of the new year. So once in a while, I get a chance to take this chair and share some stuff. So I'm always excited to spend a little time with everyone. Thank you for attending today. As Andrew mentioned, I'll be referencing an ebook on this topic that has been prepared by a few of us here at eLearning Brothers, and I think it's you'll appreciate it because it's got some great information in there. So you won't have to take a ton of notes. It's about a 10-pager maybe, but we won't be looking at all the pages. I'll be kind of jumping around to some different screens today, but you'll get a chance to get that after the webinar today. So let's talk a little bit about what we know about what I know about training programs, I guess, is the first question, right? So I think all of us are coming from different backgrounds. So when it comes to HR training programs, what does Rich Vass know about what to share with you? As you may or may not know, eLearning Brothers certainly has what's becoming a vast library of training programs that are available for use in a number of different ways. We're going to talk about your HR training programs today, specifically topics around compliance or soft skills or management or leadership training, things that may be a bit more generic. But let me just share with you a little bit about my experience. So this may resonate with some of you. You know, I'm reflecting a lot now that it's 2020 because I'm like, oh, good heavens, 20 years of this new century is already behind us. So I look back at my experience. I started back as a training specialist in '93, right? So this is 27 years ago. As a Fortune 100 financial company, really in call centers, was on the phones for a few years, moved into a kind of a coaching environment. I became a training manager from '96 to 2000, where I actually had a training team. We had some specific responsibilities over new hire, new leader training. So that was an area where we often had to think about and touch the very topic that we'll be speaking about today. So in the operations center that I was running, where I had this responsibility, there were about 1,800 people there in that ops center. So as you might imagine, that covers when you're talking about onboarding and new hire. Many of us on the meeting today probably can respect the fact that there's a number of things there that you have to consider, from compliance training, code of conduct, harassment training. New leaders definitely need sort of that whole package, and we're going to talk through some of that today. I then moved into a national curriculum director role for about 4 years. So then I was responsible for new hire and systems training at an enterprise level. That was 5 states, 5,000 employees across the country. So a lot of travel, and then considering the programs for those operation centers now in multiple states. And then after that, I kind of did my own thing for a while, joined, we're doing professional learning services, joined eLearning Brothers in 2013. And now I've been running these different roles here since I've been here at eLearning Brothers: custom design and development, custom sales, and then customer experience. So, over the years in these various roles, that's good heavens, that's a 27-year career right there. And hopefully new adventures will, continue to come along the next, whoever knows how long. But many of us, I think, can relate to this type of background, right? So if you are in a managerial role where you're actually responsible for making decisions about training programs, I think this content today will be helpful for you. Or if you're in a role where you're an instructional designer, or you're actually managing, or you're a trainer, right? And so you can have some influence on the types of programs that are being offered at your organization. Hopefully there'll be something here that'll be helpful for you. I tried to consider that in my background as I thought through my years of coming up in a company, and then my years as a consultant, doing professional learning services and advising clients on the type of training program that might be best for them. And hopefully we'll have something in here that'll be helpful for all. Let me start with this little nifty thing here that's probably going to look familiar to a lot of you. Andrew, am I sharing this right? Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. So this is what I wrote when I was in the role of sales director here. So I was in custom sales for a while. This is the job description for a custom solutions consultant. Many of you probably have something similar in your organization, whether it's from call center agent to frontline manager to a more senior manager role, you name it, customer service, sales. This particular job description deals with sales. So I wrote this early on in our company back in probably 2015, 2016, as we were getting a more sophisticated sales team just a few years ago here at eLearning Brothers. Things on here probably aren't, too out of the norm for what a sales professional would be expected to do. Resolving customer complaints by investigating problems, right? Making recommendations to management, developing solutions, servicing accounts, obtaining orders, establishing new accounts, adjusting content of sales presentations, submitting contracts. There's a lot of stuff in here. I think I had close to 20 different, just tasks or, job duties that were required for this role. Let's see, there's 25 down here. So as you look at that list, and again, I bring it up just to say this is a little peek under the hood here at eLearning Brothers on, the roles that are important for our salespeople here. And this is a custom solutions consultant. We have two sides to our business, a product side, where, and many of you may have talked to, you probably have some account executives who are part of your interaction with eLearning Brothers, whether we're selling library subscriptions or access to courses or digital assets, or we're selling custom solutions where we're helping you actually construct your own programs. This is a job description for a custom solutions rep. There are topics in here, as you might imagine. If I'm hiring brand new, somebody new, and we did actually about a year ago, we hired somebody brand new, it was a young feller who, doing great, came on board to, do this job and had some experience with sales already. But as he was moving into a role that required a little more consultative sale, some of the things on this list were things he hadn't really done before. Things like presenting a custom strategy to solve performance issues, right? So understanding what does that mean, and understanding the world of learning and development. Many of us on the call today, no doubt, have workplace learning and performance backgrounds. So if you had to think about, well, how do I consult with somebody to solve performance issues? Well, probably a lot of us would know what to do and how to do that. And if you had to boil it down, it would probably boil down to things like ask the right questions, understand when to ask an open-ended question or a closed-ended question. And that might be 101, right? Communication 101. But the point of this particular topic today, and let me go ahead and close this. The point of our topic today is really dealing with your experience in building training programs, how to build the right program, how to bring the right components into the mix. Because that new guy we hired, we may just assume he knows how to ask the right questions, how to listen, and then how to formulate questions that can help him uncover needs and performance issues that will help him craft a solution that will be appealing to the customer, right? So we can assume that, or we as training and HR professionals can know that with that job description, new people that come on board should go through a basic battery of training so that they feel confident in understanding what's required for the job, so that their managers can have a lexicon and a jargon and a communication language that we can use together. So if I'm that guy's manager, and I was for a minute, right, and I could say to that person, hey, remember in that training where it talked about this type of question, and you remember that scenario? I think that would work best here. the training programs that we're talking about here help to do that. So one thing I want to bring up is this little nugget right here. There's a concept of adaptive learning. I stole this from another presentation. Some of you may have seen this last year. I did a couple of webinars last year. This was one of the screens I had on there. So some of you may remember Pacific Gas and Electric. They're one of our clients. Awesome organization. We've done lots for them over the years. They are a very sophisticated training model internally. And this whole concept around having somebody take a training program, right? They need to recertify in a topic. Let's say it's a compliance topic. And if you work at Pacific Gas and Electric, you might be in a situation where you're dealing with dangerous stuff on your job. So you need to recertify every year to make sure you're remembering the safety protocols and that sort of thing. Well, if we can test you up front and we can get a sense of your skills and abilities and competencies, what knowledge you already have, and let's say there's 5 topics in this training program and you can pass 3 of them through the assessment, well, you really only need to take 2 of them. So that adaptive learning model, right, where we're changing the model based on what the learner needs, I think is worthy of exploration. So I wanted to just throw that out there because your LMS may be able to handle that, where you've got, let's say, 5 dozen topics, 60 courses that are loaded into your LMS, and you've got a new hire who needs all of these different topics. Let's go back to the communication 101 stuff, right? Do people understand the right questions to be asking? I didn't want to provide a session on this topic without saying, if you can put in place some sort of adaptive learning model, I think it is appreciated by those learners who have to take training every year and have to show what they know. But if they're able to test out, and that maybe that guy understands that, maybe he took communication 101 in college and he gets it, and maybe he's had experience in asking questions, he doesn't really need that training. So I think it's important. Well, you know, do you have the time to do it on your own? There are some considerations I wanted to throw up here as well to think about it. You know, does your internal team have the time and talent to really realize your vision for adaptive learning and what's right, or you know, what somebody might need or not need? Criticality, is the content highly specialized? You know, are we talking rocket science stuff here, or you know, do they have to get it right, or else is that really, really super important? Well, now we're getting into stuff that may not be off the shelf, and it may not be HR specific, right? That may be more functional area specific. But I think it's important for us to think about what do they need and how are we going to provide it as HR professionals? And of course, budget always comes into the mix, right? How much time is available? If it's internal, do we have the staff and the time and budget to dedicate that staff to build the type of training we need to really hit the mark? Or can we go outside and buy it and buy it off the shelf? It's kind of that, you may have heard the build it, buy it, bid it model here that we use at eLearning Brothers. We've got the tools for you to build it yourself. You can buy it from us. We have it off the shelf and can hand it to you, or you can bid it out to us and we'll build it for you. So that's something that I think is worthy of consideration in this topic. This is part of the expertise and time. None of you on this session today, I know we have lots of folks on today from all over the place, you're probably not surprised to see that these are the needs, these are the roles that need to be involved in doing it on your own, right? That's kind of a big team. And if you've got multiple things that you need to build, you're going to need multiple designers and multiple developers, and you know, the costs can really start to get really, really high. And then how's it going to end up looking, right? I love this. Misty is one of our lead creative designers here. This was one of her slides. She pulled it off Google, but how often do we feel like I'm gonna get those cupcakes just right, but it really looks like that, or the minion cake. I'm gonna just divulge in the 90s when I was managing learning programs and I had different roles inside of an organization, the financial organization where I worked for over 14 years. Oftentimes I would have a vision of what I wanted to do, and e-learning was growing up during that time too. So late 90s, early 2000, you may remember those days. Lectora was first on the scene. I was so keen to get my hands into Lectora by Trivantis, you know, back in the day. That was 20 years ago. They're still around doing amazing work. But, you know, I really thought I could get it right and get the graphics in there, but oftentimes I ended up looking like these images on the bottom. So making sure you've got the right people to do the right thing, and making sure if you can't do it internally, then can you get something externally that's going to work? I think those are important considerations. And again, I couldn't have this presentation without talking about some of that. This criticality of adoption, I think, is important. Your frontline staff, these are your people who are on your front line. These are the types of things they're doing. If you think about, well, product knowledge, okay, that's probably going to have to be pretty specific to your organization. But if it's sales techniques, things like how to ask the right questions, how to negotiate, how to sell, basic communication tactics, those soft skills types of programs could come right off the shelf. Ambassadors, how to speak to a customer. What does customer service mean? Those key, I'm going to call them 101, right? Those base level topics are something I think it's important to think about, and then determine how do we go about getting those? How do we bring them into our organization? Same with leadership. Think about all the things that leaders are required to do and required to handle. These types of things help you realize, you think about what's important for me to bring it in-house or do it on my own. We're going to talk a little bit about what's out there to bring in-house and how do you get the right topics as part of your program, whether you do it on your own or you end up finding something else to help you. This is an important slide, I think. We put this together a while ago, but a typical 20 to 30-minute course, this follows conventional or typical standards for design and development. These are internal costs. We notice that $35 an hour cost, right? So you've got your internal, that's about a $70,000 salary fully loaded for somebody who's knows what they're doing, right? You're going to hire that person, and that range is $60,000 to $80,000, I think, for internal salaries for what you might pay a designer or a developer, depending on, you can look at training salaries online to kind of get a sense of that. But this might feel about right for you. You're looking at how much time does it take? How much does it cost to do it all? I know budget is a consideration. So I wanted to start with some of that, at least, to say, I get it. I understand kind of what the constraints are. And then share a little bit about, if you're going to do it on your own, well, we think it's probably going to take about that much time. If you had to sort of do a budget sort of estimate and looking at the number of hours it's going to take to do it right, a typical course that might be one topic, this can just kind of give you a rubric to be thinking about what's the right way to go down the road. So let me jump out now to this little ebook here. This ebook is what Andrew will be sharing with you. If you're signed up today and attending, you'll get a free copy of this that'll be sent out to you. I mentioned it's about a dozen pages, but there's some good information in here. I think some of our instructional designers and our marketing team worked on this together, and I had some input here early on. But this whole concept of what's HR in charge of, right? Off-the-shelf training courses can often be your saving grace for the reasons we were talking about just a minute ago. These are the types of topics that I think you would typically look to provide as an HR professional or a training professional in your world. Compliance, soft skills, management. When it comes to off-the-shelf type programs, these three topic areas seem to be the most popular and the most easily integrated into your organization. You can get these off the shelf and they can fit. You can oftentimes make them fit in your organization really well. When you've got people who are coming into a role, like I was showing you that job description a minute ago, there may be soft skills topics or management topics in that role that I can just get off the shelf. I don't have e-learning developers on my team. I don't have access to SMEs or subject matter experts. Taking some pre-built courseware options can really be a great way to go. This particular ebook will get deep into 10 essential HR courses that we feel like are important for any awesome HR program to have in place. We won't get deep into all of them. I'm going to spend my time today showing you a few of these running from our own LMS, our eLearning Brothers Learning Management System, and I'll kind of show you my login courses I've been taking, and kind of give you a sense of what they would look like. We do want to make this point, however, because this business was grown. Sometimes I can't believe we started 10 years ago. Well, we're in our 11th year now, so we grew the business here at eLearning Brothers on the concept of helping the everyday person, the guy like I used to be back in the day. I wish eLearning Brothers was around in the mid-90s when I was trying to build, training for thousands of learners. But our goal has been from the beginning to make it easier for you. Whatever your role happens to be within the organization, if we can give you the assets to do it yourself, if that's what you're wanting to do, and you're going to invest the time to become an e-learning developer, we've got the stuff for you to do it. As we've evolved over time, We've now got entire courseware, entire courses, entire libraries of these soft skills or management or compliance or safety, you name it, these topics that can now be downloaded by you to be able to be used in your LMS. Our goal is always to make sure that we're giving you the right fit for your audience. But please know this, and I think it's important to say it, not every training course out there in the market is created equally. I think we've all seen some bad stuff out there. And, we don't spend time talking about what we see that's bad, but we want to focus on the positive, the good stuff. We feel like course quality matters. So when you're looking at an off-the-shelf program somewhere, please take a look at interactivity, look at things like short videos, micro-learning, and we're going to talk a little bit about micro-learning today because it's become very much the environment that I think our learners are in. Look at mobile-ready content. If it's not running and it can't be run on a mobile device, and we're talking laptops, tablets, and even phones, we feel like, oftentimes design is poorly considered when we're doing phone development. And some of the conventional wisdom of the day, some of the research is indicating that learners aren't really consuming on their phones. That may be shifting somewhat, but typically phones are used for what you'd expect, communication. I'm communicating with people, talking, or I'm texting, or I'm updating social media, or I'm probably playing a game, or I'm entertaining myself in some way. Or if I am going to look for some learning on my phone, it's typically going to be something quick. It's going to be that YouTube video that will help me figure out how to use the new blender I got for Christmas, or something like that. We're seeing a lot of that sort of consumption on phones, and that continues to be the case. But oftentimes there are more and more learners who are on the go and are taking the time to do an actual required course on their phones. And some of you may be finding that's the case as well. Some of our clients are telling us that. So I think things are shifting. I think this is an important point to make about compliance training, that oftentimes it's the most important HR training you can offer. And those types of courses coming off the shelf are usually pretty easy. Let me show you an example of one here. Let me pop out now to our learning management system. So here is my dashboard. You can see I'm logged in here in the upper right. This is the eLearning Brothers learning management system. You can see there's a few courses here I've already taken. You notice these are Vado courses. Vado is our partner for a lot of our content. Not all of it, but lots of our courses are provided in concert with our Vado partner. I've completed all my training. You see I got 100% here, so good for me. Everything that's assigned to me, except for this email and text etiquette one I was just downloading today. But let's pop over here. I'm going to drop down here into our specialty courses just real quick. You'll notice that, in here we've got a lot of safety-related topics, things that you wouldn't, necessarily have to run in your organization, like bloodborne pathogens, HIPAA security. That may not be something that you need to deal with. But there are some compliance-related topics in a library like this, such as data privacy and cybersecurity. And what is that all about? What does that mean, and why is that important? Understanding topics like anti-bribery or anti-corruption, code of conduct. Now you might look at that and go, wait a minute, Rich, my code of conduct is pretty specific to my organization. I get that, and the good news is that there are some abilities for us to help you kind of customize that message here. But these are the types of courses that we think are important that you would find in a compliance-related initiative. Let me go back to the ebook here. We're talking about things like discrimination and diversity and harassment, right? So I want to show you an example of a diversity course that's in our library. So let me come back over here, and I thought this would be helpful. I know I always appreciate in a demonstration, actually getting to see something I think would be helpful. So we've got, notice here on the left here, there's a couple of topics here. I happen to have all of the courses that are part of ELB libraries loaded up here. There's sales here. There's safety. I showed you a few of the compliance topics like code of conduct and cybersecurity. This library is professional development and soft skills for training, for managers actually, sorry. Building trust and respect, coaching career development, giving great feedback, discussing compensation. Again, a lot of that can be very generic and off the shelf, which again may be more one-on-one for some of your managers. There are some deeper level topics that maybe get into more advanced topics that can be organized by you in your LMS as you organize curriculums, but those are some good examples. Let me pop over to, let's see, There's preventing discrimination. I want to show you a particular example of, how do you end up, how can you provide the right experience for your particular organization? Let me click into the library here itself. This is going to load the professional development for soft skills and managers. You notice they're all in the list down here below. Your LMS will probably launch things a little bit differently. This is how our learning management system delivers courseware. So you'll notice that in this particular topic, we've got it organized by all of these different types of content topics. And understanding the particular piece that you need is an important part of determining what you end up getting for your particular program. We suggested here, let me jump back to it, identifying discrimination, appreciating diversity, and then sexual harassment. So rather than running you through the dozens and dozens of topics here, let me just bring up the harassment library here. So the preventing discrimination and harassment will run a general employee version, a general manager version. I think it's important to point out that if you have particular requirements for your state, there are, and there should be, if you're talking to an off-the-shelf course vendor who has these types of courses available for you to consider, you should look at, do you have the California harassment requirements or the Connecticut requirements or Delaware or Illinois and so on. These are important to consider. I think we have Maine in here, New York, and so on. So I think we all know that as HR professionals, that there are certain requirements that you'll need for your particular state. So in that case, you'll want to make sure you're getting the right stuff to be able to put up in your libraries. But let me click into just the generic version here. Oh, I clicked on safety or specialty courses again. Let me click back into just the kind of generic. Let's go to the general employee version. I just want to give you an example of what you might expect. Let's go to diversity, inclusion, and equity. We mentioned over here, if I pop back to this little ebook, appreciating diversity and how important that is. So here's an example of what that might look like. There is some audio here that you might hear, but no worries if you're not hearing it. There's some music here that's going on. We start the course. This particular course gives us a little bit of navigation tips. How do you move around this e-learning course? You'll notice it's about 27 slides. You're going to get some quick learning objectives. What is it you're going to learn today? There is audio narration running here. So we get, the narrator in a very nice voice explaining these different concepts. What's important for the learner? What are you going to learn about today? And then as you step through it, we actually have another course called Unconscious Bias that's provided as one of our libraries as well. That's great. But as you're stepping through it, you actually do get the opportunity to not only hear narration, hear audio, watch images and whatnot. So I think that's important that you'll need that. But the video pieces of it, I think, are important. And you might even say, you'll notice here we have a video narrator. If you've been an eLearning Brothers customer for a while and you've been using our digital asset libraries, we do have some video-based narrators who just kind of do things like move a little bit. This was obviously for somebody who was recorded on a green screen with a background here. I think that is a green screen because we dropped the background right behind her there. But she's actually taking the time to step through specific topics and concepts. That little video avatar, that video narrator, is kind of a helpful way to engage a learner. They're going to have to sit through this thing for 30 minutes, 30 or 40 minutes, get some ideas along the way. I love how these courses pop the bullets a little bit here as the learners kind of stepping through each one. We're learning about definitions as we go. She's going to introduce a scenario here in a minute. Let's take a look at a specific scenario regarding this topic of diversity and inclusion, and let's see what you think. This particular course here also has, we're running some closed captioning across the bottom, which I think is nice. Something to consider as well, since this topic is all about how to rock your training programs in 2020. Thinking about things like your ADA requirements. Sometimes we call that 508, right? Where you need to think about accessibility. Do you need to make sure your courses have closed captioning? That folks can they access them and run them by just using a JAWS screen reader? Maybe they can't see the text on the screen, but they can hear it. So these courses are able to run according to that compliance. So I think that's important to point out as well. Something to consider. So that might be something you want to jot down and think about as you're considering, bringing in courses for your own needs. we'll wait for her to kind of finish this up here, and then we'll jump to her next piece, which I think is helpful to see. What we've seen a few things here already. We've seen some video, right? We've seen lots of animation, well, light animation, text and pictures animating back and forth. You know, we're looking now at, you know, just screens where we just call these sort of explanatory screens. There's things that are being explained as a narrator is talking through each piece. When we're building courses here at eLearning Brothers for our clients, we try to go every 4 or 5 screens with some level of interactivity where the learner is actually doing something. So you'll notice that here as we're moving along is, you know, the learner does get a chance to actually engage with something. And that might be as simple as, you know, a drag and drop exercise or a matching exercise, because these courses are designed to actually be run on phones, and we've considered some of the 508 requirements. We're careful about making sure that the learner doesn't have to do things like a drag and drop or a matching exercise. So in this case, this is where we get to a situation where they now have to kind of, you know, watch a scenario, and they have to determine, hey, what's going on here, and, you know, make the right decision based on what we're watching. And this is a workplace situation, obviously. So these types of engagements, especially when it comes to soft skills, I'm going to pause this here for just a minute and jump back over here. When we're talking about things like soft skills, in this case, it's compliance courses, you know, sexual harassment, diversity, discrimination, all of the things we're just talking about really help to make that more engaging and more interesting. So if you can find video and you can find some level of engagement along the way, I think that's an important consideration. Let me jump down to this next topic here, which is our soft skills training. This is something I think that if there were any like series of courses, I think that would be super important. It would be probably these. And for these key points that you see right here on the slide, you know, I think about my own kids, right, that have grown up, and I'm an old guy now, so I just turned 50 last year. So, you know, my youngest is 20 years old. My kids are entering the workplace now, these millennial kids, right, mid-20s. And this concept about digital connectedness, the casual nature of texting, instant messaging, it just doesn't, you know, I look at my experience as a 20-something kid entering the workplace. Well, that was in 1990. So when I'm entering the workplace, I haven't had the whole experience, you know, that was 30 years ago, but I didn't have the experience of communicating a lot with friends and family and associates or whatever, just through texting, right? Just through not really speaking. So we probably just need to spend a lot of time on that, because you know what I'm talking about. But finding a library, and we've got some suggestions here. Oh, let me scroll down. I went the wrong way. We're suggesting things like how to communicate with each other. What is the proper email and texting etiquette that would be important for the workplace? And you might say, like me, well, come on, is that really something that's that important? But there's key concepts, and that's why I ran this one here and loaded it on my dashboard. There are some key concepts here within, you know, emailing and text etiquette that you might not have thought about. And I'll bet you there are people in your organization who haven't thought about when not to text message or when you wouldn't send an email. It's just about soft skills, right? It's just about that emotional intelligence that's such a key part of success in today's environment. So again, those key components, I'm going to jump back over here again. I don't want to bore you to death by just kind of going through all these different courses, because there's plenty to look at here. But these key components of interactivity, short video and mobile ready, I think that's important. I want to show you a quick trick, by the way. If somebody's telling you that, oh yeah, our stuff is definitely mobile compliant, there's a quick trick that you can put in place here. Let me go ahead and launch one of these courses. So I didn't start the text messaging one yet. I was doing the email etiquette one. So I'll start this course here. We've got some video running. You know, welcome to this course, blah, blah, blah. Go ahead and start. Again, we've got that, you know, some objectives and whatnot. But a cool little trick you can run is just to go ahead and collapse the window. So you'll note that what happened here is everything recentered itself. Notice how the title across the top and my next and back arrows all adjusted themselves, right? It's responsive to a device. So if I'm on a smaller screen, it actually is going to change, and you can see when it makes the shift. So when I make it bigger, you know, okay, now I see that the text is over here on the right side of the screen. You know, things should happen. Things should move around like we expect it to. Notice when I collapse it, the text moves to the bottom of the screen. So my content is device aware. It knows when I'm on a smaller window how the content should move around a little bit. So that's what we mean when we say, you know, again, apologies if you already know all this, but I think it's a quick and easy way. When somebody's saying, oh, that material is responsive, go ahead and collapse the window and try that in your own device or on your own just browser window. If you're running it on a PC, if you're looking at a demo, and see if it really does move. The text should move. It shouldn't look all jumbly. It's very hard, as we all know, to have to scroll around on a tiny screen to find content that is not really optimized for a mobile screen. So a couple more options here, then we'll wrap up and open up for questions. Soft skills training, again, I think it's critical. Here are a couple that we think are important. Again, you'll get this ebook in your inboxes, so you get a chance to read through it a little bit more. Management training. I just want to touch on this for just a minute. I've said this for years. One of my first roles was new skills for managers. And I know, like, I used to run a 101 type program, you know, just basic leadership essentials for managers. And I would make the point that's being made right here on this slide. Our relationships with our direct supervisors can be a source of the biggest stress or the biggest satisfaction in our lives. Think about that for a minute. Would you agree with that? Think about your immediate supervisor. And I'm sorry if some of you are in situations where it's horrible, and maybe you're coming into the new year thinking, I gotta go work somewhere else. Bringing to the point, people leave managers, not organizations. So whatever management training you can provide for your managers, even the basics, I can't stress how important it is. I know that you know this already, but topics like, oh, sorry, I keep going the wrong direction. Topics like legal aspects of interviewing. There's unconscious bias I was mentioning. How to have a coaching conversation with someone. How to receive a complaint and resolve it. How to take corrective action, right? You know, we've grown the business here at eLearning Brothers. I was one of the first guys to start back in the day when the two bros started the company, and we're up to close to 70 employees now. You know, it's been fun to just be on this awesome experience of growing this company these last, you know, God heavens, I'm going on 9 years here with the organization. But I think you all can relate when I say this. As we've grown up and we've brought on new levels of management, and new managers have had to be promoted into different roles to manage bigger teams, it's very hard to remember to provide the right training for those people. When there's new managers come into their role, oh, I'm going to be managing people now. Okay, well, the reason you got promoted was because you were doing such a great job in that role, in that specific area. And now you're going to be managing others. And they've never had any training on managing others. So this probably goes without saying that when you're looking at a library and we're talking about professional development for managers, I mean, look at these kinds of topics, guys. We've suggested a few on the previous page, but if you look at just these types of specific topics that you can provide in a program for your management teams, I think it's critical. Even though if you in your role, you may know what's going on, but it's important to put that hat on and be thinking as an HR and training professional, we've got to provide the right sort of topics that people can give them, that we're going to give them the building blocks for success. I think that's what's important. So that'll be my last thing I'm going to say about content. Again, I told Andrew, if I ramble, I could go for a whole hour today. But we both agreed, well, about 40 minutes are probably good because we can answer some questions and we can wrap up and let you get on with your day. But again, just a last page or two here. Other things to think about with your HR training program. We've talked about micro-learning. You know, on the custom team here at ELB, and we're doing, you know, dozens and dozens of projects for lots of clients at any given time. More and more, our approach is micro. And I think more of you are seeing that too in your organizations, where it's just short bursts of information that I can get quickly. That's something I think that's important. And you'll notice all of the programs that we were showing you today that are in our particular libraries typically take that micro-learning approach, and we're moving that direction. So I'll finalize that. Let's see, the final screens. Here's a little key takeaway. What are some 10 must-haves? What are courseware features to look for? We kind of talked about all of that. I'll come back to my PowerPoint now and wrap things up here. But if you have any questions about any of what eLearning Brothers can do for you, I'm certainly the guy that can help you with that. My experience, well, my role right now is customer experience. So I'm very keenly interested in any feedback you have or any questions you have that my team can provide. Some of you may have talked to Brennan, who's on our customer experience team, who helps make sure you're having a great experience, you're getting onboarded well with whatever you're using here at ELB. But this is my contact information. Certainly reach out to me. And then I'll turn it back over to Andrew to wrap us up.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Rich. This has been very, very useful information. We don't have a whole lot of questions here that wouldn't be better to just be answered one-on-one offline. So we won't take any additional questions, but I do want to point out you can schedule a demo to take a look at our off-the-shelf training. Those are the courses that Rich had talked about, or you can call that same number, 801-796-2767, and you can schedule a demo to see some of the custom work that we've done to meet these needs. And if you guys just want to chat and maybe have a consultation on how you can better implement your HR training, by all means, give us a call as well, and we're happy to chat with you. Or send us an email at info@elearningbrothers.com. And you can always visit elearningbrothers.com to get other tips and tricks and other things that we've shared there and learn about a bit more about what we've done. Just a reminder, I'm going to be sending an email out to everybody here in the next couple of hours, and it will include a download link for the ebook that Rich was pulling a lot of the information from, so you can have that on hand for yourself. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Thanks again, Rich, for your time, and we'll see you guys all next time.